we discover the changing face of Beijing. We take a look at an unexpected find in an ancient French town. Man's best friend holidays in Vietnam. And we gain a glimpse into our future from our driest continent. But first, there are not many clocks around the world that are instantly recognisable or a notable landmark. But this one is special. It is Big Ben in London. How many clocks do we know that make the news when they stop?
For nearly 150 years, the chimes of Big Ben have been a constant and comforting reminder of British life ongoing. But now, for the next month at least, Big Ben is clocking off.
Time seemed to stand still for many tourists gazing up at Big Ben today. The world-famous tower clock at Westminster was stopped at 8 this morning for maintenance. Then, to many people's amusement, the hands were speeded up.
The clock tower, better known as Big Ben, owes its existence to an 1834 fire that destroyed most of the Palace of Westminster. A commission was set up to choose a new palace design, which attracted 97 submissions. Among them was Charles Barry's entry, incorporating a clock tower designed by Augustus Pugin. Barry's design was selected and the clock swung into action in 1859.
8 o'clock and Big Ben's final chimes. For the next 6 weeks or so, this London landmark will fall silent as engineers begin replacing parts of the clock's giant mechanism. Parts that have remained in place since it was first completed in 1859.
Big Ben is the name given to the main bell housed in the tower. The current bell is actually the second bell, after the first cracked while being tested in 1856. The second bell was cast in London's Whitechapel Bell Foundry. In October 1858, the bell was pulled 200 feet up the clock tower's belfry, a feat that took 18 hours. The bell weighs 13.5 tons and the hammer weighs 200 kilograms. Gothic revival in style, the clock tower's height is 96 metres and it takes 393 steps to climb from the ground to the belfry.
We're going to be replacing the bearings on the strike train, which is the barrel that actually chimes Big Ben itself, and the going train, which controls the clock. So that's quite big in itself, but we're also going to be doing work on the hands and the face.
The clock face has a 7-metre diameter, with the 4.2-metre long minute hands weighing 100 kilograms. The 2.7-metre long hour hand is made of gunmetal and weighs 300 kilograms. To keep the clock accurate, there is a double 3-legged gravity escapement mechanism. It beats every 2 seconds and has kept remarkably good time for nearly 150 years. In that time, the longest time the clock has stopped was for 5 months in 1956. In 1848, the Astronomer Royal, Sir George Airy, and barrister Edmund Denison, who was an amateur watchmaker, took charge of designing the great clock. Clockmaker Edward Dent had the job of building it. Big Ben first rang in July 1859, but again the bell cracked in the following September. However, this time the bell was simply rotated, so the hammer didn't strike the crack. It remains in operation to this day. Cleaning the face is not a job for the faint-hearted. As the hands are spun forward to 12 o'clock, a team of specialist abseilers descend to what amounts to one of the biggest facelifts in history. Washing down the 312 pieces of opaque glass which comprise each face is a mammoth task. The project is the final phase in anticipation of the great clock's 150th anniversary in 2009.
But of course it's also not only a national icon, but it's an international icon. For the older generation, it's still remembered for the war, of course, where it continued striking and chiming, even with the bombs dropping. And I believe it's the third most recognised landmark in the entire world.
No one knows the exact origins of the name Big Ben, but the most popular theory is that the bell was named after Sir Benjamin Hall, the first Commissioner of Works and a tall man known in the House of Commons as Big Ben. Another theory of how the bell got its name is that it was given the nickname of a champion heavyweight boxer of the time called Ben Court. He fought his last fight in 1857, when the bell and the debate of what to name it was in the public consciousness. Coming up, the changing face of Beijing. The Great Wall of China is undoubtedly a landmark, as is Beijing's Forbidden City. But is Beijing's new titanium bubble a landmark or an architectural horror? People are divided on the answer. In the lead-up to the 2008 Olympics, Beijing is facing many such controversies. Day and night, 4,000 Chinese labourers are laying the foundations of a dazzling design, an enormous titanium bubble surrounded by water, which will be home to a state-of-the-art opera theatre and concert hall. Costing more than $300 million, work on the project was stalled for months, dogged by controversy over its avant-garde design. It became a symbol of the growing clash between those who want to change the look of Beijing and conservationists who fear for its historic landmarks. Critics have dubbed the design by French architect Paul Andréu an alien egg and say it will destroy the harmony of nearby Tiananmen Square. But Andréu fiercely defends his work. China wants to do well. She wants to build meaningful things, so maybe for now, China is absorbing the outside world, mingling it with what she is. We will notice very soon that it is going to create things which belong to her, and only to her. First, because the things that China will have taken from the outside, I'm thinking about this opera house in particular, people will eventually realize that it is very Chinese. The Commune by the Great Wall is another avant-garde project built at the foot of China's most famous landmark. Developers invited 12 Asian architects to design a range of contemporary homes in a valley below the Great Wall. Selling for up to $1 million, the homes are out of reach of ordinary Chinese, but affordable to the new rich elite. The developers say they have done everything to ensure that the designs blend in with the unique environment, banning bright colours and barring hilltop locations. We think that China has now entered a construction age, which is most interesting for big cities. Beijing and Shanghai are going to build a new face for themselves in the next 10 to 20 years. So we asked ourselves, among these Chinese towns under construction, is there a contemporary spirit of our own? Has it been embodied in architecture? For many conservationists, construction projects like this are the tip of an iceberg that is threatening to ruin the Great Wall and other historic landmarks. A tourism boom has already blighted many sections of the wall, with tourist buses clogging the once pristine villages around it and fast food outlets scarring the landscape. A British author, William Lindsay, set up the International Friends of the Great Wall last year, in a bid to prevent rampant construction from desecrating China's most enduring symbol of history and culture.
It's a bit like the ancient and modern mixing in the centre of Beijing or the centre of London. Would it be appropriate to have a KFC or a McDonald's in the Forbidden City or outside the Great Wall of the People? Would it be appropriate to have those kind of fast food outlets on the doorsteps of St Paul's Cathedral? No, it wouldn't. People like the ancient, people like the modern, but if the two go side by side, then there is a conflict. And I believe the developer needs to learn about what the Great Wall exactly is. It's not a building, it's a landscape. And if modern buildings intrude on that landscape, then that is exploitation of the landscape.
While the modernisers insist they are innovators presenting a bold new Chinese aesthetic to the world, others say China's new look may come at too high a price. Sometimes landmark discoveries come at the most unexpected time. Recently, Routine building work in the heart of the ancient French town of Nîmes led to a unique and fascinating discovery. Work was taking place on an underground car park in the southern French town when the National Institute of Preventive Archaeological Research uncovered two magnificent Roman mosaics. The work dates back to the town's history as one of the principal cities in Roman Gaul. There is a first-floor mosaic that is not very well preserved, but has an interesting design, with references to Trojan mythology that shows an episode linked to the life of Achilles. The mosaics are nearly 2,000 years old. We are always in about the same era, at the end of the 2nd century AD. It's a bit early to date it, but we're around about that sort of time. The second mosaic is frankly exceptional. Why? Because it is very, very well preserved. The structure of the design is very complex, a mixture of medallions, curves, and the central motif is unique for a mosaic. It shows a battle between the gods and the giants, in this case Dionysus or Bacchus for the Romans, fighting the giant Eurytos. The two works, measuring 35 square metres and 50 square metres respectively, date from the 2nd century AD, and the smaller of the two is among the best preserved examples in all Roman Gaul. The pieces would have decorated the floor of the main reception rooms in one of the grandest houses in the city, and work has also revealed a courtyard with a decorative basin and well, along with the remains of painted trompe-l'oeil walls. So here we are obviously in the home of someone who could afford to buy mosaics, without doubt an important figure in the ancient city of Nîmes. Today, the archaeologists are undertaking the painstaking work of removing the mosaics from their original settings. The first mosaics we know of date back to the 4th millennium BC from South Mesopotamia. It was the Sumerians from ancient Persia who gave us the first kinds of decoration, with pieces of cockle shells, onyx and clay in a temple at the ancient city of Uruk. Mosaics then spread to Italy and were developed there, especially in Pompeii and Rome. Romans decorated floors and walls of houses, temples and baths, following a simple and monochrome technique. Themes in this era are various. We find scenes inspired by ancient myths, decorative elements from sea and earth, scenes of hunting, faces, emperors, and most of all, themes inspired by the Christian religion that was dominant during this period. Despite the well-preserved nature of the Nîmes find, preserving them is a delicate process. It's also the case for mosaics that we remove them in a very meticulous manner. They are stuck together. Then the mosaic floor is cut into blocks of several meters squared. Then we are going to transfer them to museum storage in order to study them and restore them ready to put on public display. Since October 2006, 35 archaeologists have been undertaking a survey of the extensive Roman walls. The excavation of the ancient town Nîmes is already famous for its Roman amphitheatre and the square house. But at the moment, it is these magnificent mosaics that are taking centre stage. Coming up, pet paradise in Vietnam. If you own a pet, this is one landmark story that will be of interest. Tucked away in an unremarkable residential alley of Hanoi in Vietnam is the Hotel Cho Meow, or Hotel Dogs and Cats. Nguyen Bao Sin's 50-room Hanoi hotel for animals offers long-term boarding, music, a scenic lake view, as well as veterinary care. The former literary teacher tapped into demand for animal boarding and care as residents of the communist country got wealthier. In addition, he believes it is his destiny to run what is perhaps the only animal hotel in Vietnam. I caught the idea of that demand, the new society's demand, and also due to my karma and my hobby. It seems that in my previous life, I received a duty to look after these animals in my next. Boarding houses for pets are fairly common in the West, but not so in countries like Vietnam, which still has about a third of its population living under the poverty line and where eating dogs is common. The 10,000 square metre facility houses up to 100 cats and dogs in cages, boasts a pond for the aquatically inclined, and a scenic view of a lily pad covered lake. The hotel's 50 cages accommodate mostly dogs and cats, but there are also more exotic species such as fighting cocks, a monkey and 2 bears. It also offers medical care, grooming, cremations and even breeding services. All this for around $2 a day for dogs and $1 a day for cats. The hotel cares for pets for sometimes as long as several months, as owners take long holidays or temporary work assignments. Customers are local and foreigners, although increasingly the former. Higher disposable incomes in one of Asia's fastest growing economies are leading to increasing pet ownership. Sing is closely attuned to the pet's needs. I live here, so when I hear the sound of a dog or a cat, I know whether it is sick or if it has any trouble. Like if it had its legs stuck in a cage. I can guess how well a cock is just from being indoors and listening to its crow. 4 veterinarians work at the hotel alongside a part-time groomer. Casual visitors, such as 73-year-old Do Ti Sang's cat, receives the same love and attention as the long-term guests. As the vet gently massages the cat's legs, the elderly woman tells a visitor her cat passed out after nearly drowning when their home flooded. The doctors here give it good treatment and it can walk now. They saved its life. It would have been miserable if it was left paralysed. I had to hold and massage it for more than 1 month when it could not walk, and the doctors here taught me how to massage it. As a hotel, there are 2 aims, 1 for dogs and cats, and 2 for people to relax. Their owners can come and are able to admire the beauty, so they think their pets can also enjoy the scene. For the pets, it's animal paradise. A dog can chase a ball or fetch a sandal all day. Pets are fed twice a day, and a typical meal is rice porridge or noodles mixed with pet food. Then there's the grooming. Who, animal or human, doesn't like having their hair brushed? This puppy certainly does. Then there's the cat sauna. This is a holistic service. When the time comes, as it must to us all, pet owners can have their beloved friends cremated on the grounds. A service Sing started after learning about pet cemeteries in Europe. But before then, hopefully there will be plenty of time to enjoy life and the odd sauna. It is a stark and beautiful landscape. Antarctica. It is about 1.5 times larger than the United States and is home to the world's largest desert. 98% of Antarctica is covered with a continental ice sheet. The remaining 2% of land is barren. But Antarctica is a storehouse of Earth history and contains many clues about its possible future. Studying sections of ice core going back 800,000 years, scientists at the British Antarctic Survey have come to some stark conclusions about climate change. The survey presented the results of its 8-year study at the University of East Anglia. They confirmed there has been an unprecedented growth in greenhouse gases over the past 50 years. The Antarctic climate provides an ideal base for studying climate change. Conditions ensure that snow doesn't melt as elsewhere. Air bubbles are trapped in the ice for thousands of years, providing natural records of climate change. The European Project for Ice Core in Antarctica, EPICA, has brought together the scientists of 10 European countries. They've been drilling in an area known as Dome C. where the ice core is just over 3 kilometres long, descending to depths where air bubbles were trapped 800,000 years ago.
The way it works is you have to drill into the ice bit by bit. You can only bring up about 3 metres of ice at a time, which at the site we're talking about is a few hundred years at a time. And then you bring it up and then you lower the drill again and drill the next section. And if you repeat that 1,000 times, you get to the bottom of the ice sheet where you find ice that's getting close to 1 million years old.
What they found delivered a clear message. The carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere have increased by 30% in the past 150 years, with an accelerated rise in the last half-century. The scientists emphasise that every country and continent needs to improve its fuel efficiency and reduce CO2 emissions. But there can be a different approach between the developed and developing nations, taking the fast-growing economies of India and China as examples.
There is a little bit of scope for increase in CO2 before it has to go down quite a lot. In our countries, at the beginning, 30 years ago, we were emitting much more CO2 for the energy produced, and now we've become much more efficient. As China and India are growing, they can benefit from this technology transfer so that at the moment they could use energy without emitting so much CO2 as we have.
Analysis of the ice core, conducted at various European laboratories, shows how fast carbon emissions have risen. Making best use of technology to reduce emissions is, in the scientists' view, a vital element.
Within this 20-30 year period, then the developing countries will have grown and gotten out of poverty in many cases, and then they can also switch to renewable energy. We have time, we just have to be organized in and focused to reducing the global emissions.
The survey team was in doubt as to the strength of their survey results. The figures in the survey indicated that for 800,000 years, carbon dioxide levels were between 180 and 300 parts per million. That is the number of molecules in the atmosphere. Now it has risen to 380 parts per million.
The concentrations in the last half century are much higher than anything that we've seen naturally in the last 800,000 years, and perhaps even more striking, the rate of increase is so fast. It's about 50 times faster than anything we see in the natural record, which is too fast probably for the Earth to cope with.
The judgment of the scientists in Antarctica is that if we don't make the best use of technology in reducing global emissions of carbon dioxide and methane, future generations will pay the penalty.